January Diversions, the game show in which only bad ideas count. I will be your host, Leanne, and today we will be exposing ourselves. Not like that. Dust jackets stay on this channel, okay? No, instead of dust jackets off, today we will be exposing ourselves to change. Because everybody likes change, right? And welcome back to another video. It is time for my March TBR. The eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed that there were in fact no TBRs on my channel for the month of January and for February. That was entirely strategic on my part. I did not in fact take a pass. I was not in fact sitting on Mood Reading Island with a drink with a little umbrella. No, instead I took the month of January and February to completely clear everything that I was currently reading to make room for this new thing that we're doing. Does the word new also make you spontaneously break out in a sweat? Because that's what it's doing for me. Okay, so here's the sitch, guys. I love making TBRs. They are some of my favourite videos to film. My favourite videos on BookTube are still the BookTube staples. TBRs, wrap-ups, hauls, unhauls, all of the normal things that make BookTube turn on a daily basis. So you can rest assured that although things are going to change, I'm still going to be creating TBRs. I mean, mostly because Mood Reading Island, it's an illusion of relaxation and joy. It's actually slow torture wherein I walk around my shelves endlessly picking things up that never get finished. Or not picking things up sometimes, as the case may be. But like many other creators who've been on BookTube for quite a while and have very well established ways of picking our TBRs and running our TBR games, things that sometimes just get a little bit stale. And that is honestly what happened to me at the end of 2022, as it was for many other creators. It was weird. I started to see a little wave of TBR choosing burnout. Several of us who've been playing the same games and running the same readathons for years have just decided this year that it's time to shake some things up. So if you've been around my channel for a little while, then you know that for many years now I have played Stack It. Stack It was a game in which I would pick a physical TBR from my shelves, and whatever order the books came out in, that was the order that I had to read them in. And if I happened to want to skip a book, then I had to unhaul that book, because the chances were that if I didn't want to read it then I probably didn't want to read it at all, and I just wasn't being honest with myself. I did later introduce a rule where I could flip the stack and read from the bottom down if I wanted to, and there were a few other sundry rules kicking about, but that is the general essence of the game. And then 2 years ago I started my hashtag year of readathons, and the principle for that was simply that I really love readathons. They make me really motivated to pick books creatively, and so I challenged myself to every month for the last 2 years come up with a totally new way of choosing my TBR every month. A different mini game for each TBR, and we had so many different things. We had Pantone swatches, we had code names, we had song lyrics. It was the best of times. But after so long of using the same method to choose my TBR, I'm no longer really inspired to do it. Stack It started to feel really restrictive instead of making me feel like the books were compulsively readable. And it also had the side effect of making me pick up less Kindle books and less audiobooks. And then the other thing that happened was that instead of feeling excited to pick new themes for my year of readathons, I started to get really stressed about it. After 2 years of doing a completely different thing every month, I was starting to run out of ideas that I really liked. And as you guys know, almost every month I would create new graphics to go along with each challenge so that you guys could follow along on social media, and it just became so much that it wasn't fun anymore. And finally, the last reason for this big change is because I want to make more vlogs in 2023. You guys are constantly asking me for vlogs, weekend vlogs, 24-hour vlogs, themed vlogs. You guys want any of them. And in truth, along with these staple videos of BookTube like my TBRs and my wrap-ups and things, vlogs are my favourite thing to make. hands down. Both Stack It and my Year of Readathons don't really lend themselves very easily to a vlog format, especially not if I want to make half of those vlogs themed, because the challenges in Year of TBR are usually so random that it's difficult to group books together by any theme. I know that you love the randomness of my Year of TBR challenges, and I know that you love that Stack It makes me get through my physical library, and so I have considered both of those things as we move to a brand new TBR game, because I want to make your brain just as happy as I make my brain, and I think we can achieve both. So with the scary part of change out of the way, let's get to the fun part. I have started a bookish bullet journal. I don't really want to call it a bullet journal. There is nothing of the bullet journal system in here. So maybe we'll just go with a bookish journal. And as well as just having a ton of arty fun in my journal for arty fun's sake, something that I don't do very often anymore now that my illustrations mostly go on products, I have been doing things like tracking my favourite quotes, counting my books, and setting up for myself a couple of challenges. And these challenges are going to form the new basis of the way that I choose my TBRs going forward. You guys know that I am a fan of a bingo board. I absolutely love being able to scratch boxes off, colour them in, get full lines. There's something that makes me feel extra accomplished when I can visually see how much I have done. And so for the whole year of 2023, I have created for myself a bookish bingo board. And I have recreated it here digitally for your viewing pleasure. So let's now fill in the squares on the bingo board together, and then you too shall see what kind of new stress I have wrought upon myself. The very first square on my bingo board is to read 80% of my 2023 purchases. I'm now imagining that all of you who tuned in for last month's The Haul to End All Haul videos are now cackling behind your hands. Or maybe not behind your hands, maybe you're not even trying to hide it. Maybe you're sitting there like, haha, karma strikes. So if we were to do a little bit of number work on this, 80% of my current book purchases for the year works out to about 72 books. Now that number does look a little bit scary on the surface, but considering I did the most epic of all unhauls at the end of 2022 to try and clear out all of the backlist titles that I just wasn't interested in anymore, or things that I had tried and soft DNF'd and just had to admit to myself that I was never going to come back to, is not actually that bad, because as it stands I don't have a ton of backlist titles on my shelf that I haven't tried that I need to also work my way through. And I guess this is also the point to say that it's worth bearing in mind that I like to have a large library. I want my library to completely consist of books that I have read and absolutely loved, or possibilities for the future. That said, I do want to do more investigation into the way that I buy books in 2023, and I think that this 80% challenge will be a good marker of how many books I actually do need to pre-order versus how many books I pre-order and end up sitting there until the next year. The next square on the board is read 12 Kindle books. I would like to break the curse of my Kindle being the place where books go to die. I'm also not necessarily going to force myself to read a Kindle book every month. I don't mind if this number gets made up of in March I read 3 and in May I read 2, etc. Realistically, I could also have put this number up higher, but given the fact that we are trying to read 80% of my 2023 purchases, I think that we'll stick with 12 and call it a win if we get there. Next up is, you guessed it, read 12 audiobooks. So again, same principle, I won't necessarily always listen to one a month, but if I listen to more than 12 books, I will be very, very happy. Next up is to read 5 non-fiction books. Now this is an interesting one because in my mind in 2022 I didn't read that much non-fiction. I had gone from a person who read about a third non-fiction to all of my other genre books, and I was quite happy with that ratio. So for some reason in 2022 I convinced myself that I read way less non-fiction books than I ever had in any previous years, and then I actually sat down and did some stats because your girl has also set herself up a reading spreadsheet for this year, and I wanted some rudimentary numbers that I could compare from 2022 to whatever data I get in 2023. And actually, just under a half of all of my reading in 2022 was non-fiction books. So like more than my assumed previous number. Many non-fiction books, and I'm not entirely sure how I managed this, but I did it, so you go me, I guess. So when I set this number in my bookish journal at 5, I was like, I think that is a reasonable amount. I think we can smash through that, but I'm not going to change it for now. I'm going to keep it at 5. I may revisit it in some point in the year if I steam past that number, but I think sometimes when you're doing challenges like this, it's actually nice to have a semi-easy win. A gentle box that you can tick off along with all of the other boxes, which are more like sitting on nails for fun. Next up, we have got read 10 graphic novels. Your girl has got Kindle Unlimited, and there are a vast amount of graphic novels available on Kindle Unlimited, which kind of blows my whole I don't buy graphic novels because I don't sit with them for long enough to be able to justify the price of graphic novels thing out of the water. And to be perfectly fair, I've already made a huge dent in this number with the Lore Olympus and the Garlic graphic novels already in January and February. So I'm pleased to say that this one is also well underway and in progress. Next up we have finish 3 ongoing series. This is a challenge that I set myself every single year. On all previous years that I have done goals or intentions or plans for the next year video, I have always set myself the goal to finish ongoing series. As part of my 2023 spreadsheet, I also set myself up a series tracker, and it was painful and somewhat confronting to look at how many things that I actually have on the go, and also how many of the new books that I have bought in 2023 are actually the starts of series. Like, it's a vast amount, you guys. It's many books. And so I want to set myself the task of completely finishing 3 series in 2022, be that a 14 book extended series, or be that a duology or a trilogy where there's just one book left outstanding. All I have to do is finish 3. Again, if we breeze through that, we'll revisit it later, but I think that 3 is a fairly good number, considering depending on what series I decide to focus on, that could be a lot of books. For my next square, I have got read 2 books aloud to lovely spouse Harry. If you've been on my channel for a little bit of time, you will know that Harry and I used to read tons of books together, and I would be reading during times when Harry was cooking or when we were in the car travelling places, that kind of thing. But for a lot of different reasons, Harry and I have both individually picked up a ton of new hobbies over the last couple of years, and so we're both doing a lot more things like gaming individually and together, building models. I'm doing a lot more stuff with traditional materials for my shop update this year, and so we just haven't had the chance to really read together for at least 8 or 9 months, and both of us are pretty over it. We love reading together, and there are a couple of series that we're smack bang in the middle of and we've just put down because neither of us feels right reading them solo, and so I need to get back to that, but I've set this number really low so it doesn't stress me or Harry out. But depending on if we pick up another book that's the same length as Ship of Magic was, which took us over a month to read together, then this goal seems like a pretty nice place to start. And then finally, the very last box on this bingo board is 12 books for my new earworm challenge. But what, I hear you say, Leanne, is the earworm challenge? Well, let me tell you. I don't know whether this is ADHD or just a weird quirk of my personality, but when I find a new song that like scratches a brain itch for me, I end up listening to that song on repeat for a really long time. I'm usually listening to tons of other things in between, but that song, every time I come back to it, gives me a massive dopamine rush. And I can never predict when the next song is going to land, but it always does. Year of readathons meant that there was always a random prompt where I would be forced to pick a book completely off the cuff. It's like no preparation or forethought, I would just have to, bam, go find a book that fit that. And I wanted to put at least one square on this bingo board that was going to give me roughly the same kind of feeling. And so what I've decided to do is every time I get 3 new earworm songs, I will do a vlog where I read 3 books to go with those 3 different songs, and we are going to make it a vlog series, and that vlog series will hopefully last for the rest of 2023, and then if we like it we can start it again next year. So there is my bingo board for 2023. I hope you're as excited for it as I am, because you're going to be seeing it a lot, and hopefully you're going to be cheering me on as I tick the numbers off. And I'm going to make sure that every time we do a check-in with this board there is a little number in the corner of each square which will let you know how many of those books that we have managed to tick off so far. And lastly, before we go into looking at my choices for this month, I do want to point out that there are another couple of sources where I get books that I need to read every month. First off, there is my Patreon book club. This is bi-monthly, but we do pick 2 books every month. This is in the hopes that the top 2 picks on my poll are in different genres, and so if you are not interested in one of the genres that month, you can read the opposite book, or if you're interested in both, you can read both of them. But I'm interested in all of the genres that I put on my poll, so I read both of those books every month. I am of course one half of the hosts of Around the Disc in 800 Days, which is a complete Discworld readathon which kicked off in January of this year. Still got plenty of time to catch up with us and join in with that if you would like to. I will link my announcement video down below. I will also be doing a vlog series project in 2023 where I read the first books in really popular fantasy series and try them out so that you guys don't have to. But hopefully some of my book clubs and other commitments will intersect, and I will be able to choose audiobooks for some of those or Kindle books for some of those. Hopefully some of the picks that are out of my control will be new books that I have bought in 2023, and so I'm sure that there will be plenty of ways to tick off that bingo board whilst also panicking about all of the stuff. Okay, so look, I know that that was a lot of information that I just shoved in your face, but I wanted a video on this to exist where I could point people back for the rest of the year to all of the information about how this challenge works, and also why we are shelving other challenges that I have done in the past. Future months TBRs will be chaotic, but they will be my normal brand of chaotic. You know, the kind where I'm running around like a headless chook and you're laughing at me while I do it. Wow, right as we get to the books, the darkness has descended. That ominous universe, so you're trying to tell me something about these bookish picks? Because I would really kind of prefer if you would keep your opinion to yourself. Let's just, there we go. Okay, finally, let's get through the actual books that are on this month's TBR. First up, let's get the books for Around the Disc in 800 Days out of the way. The books that we are reading this month are Sourcery, which is unfortunately another Rincewind book. Out of all of the books in the Discworld, Rincewind is by far my least favourite. For me, the one shining light in all of the Rincewind books is the luggage, and the more of him that we see, the better. But the second book that we are reading this month is Weird Sisters, which is the first proper book in the Witches series. For those of you who are not familiar with the Discworld, it is split into a lot of sub-series. So we have Rincewind books, Witches books, Guards books, Death books, etc. And the Witches books are just untouchable for me. They are not only the peak of Discworld in my humble opinion, but they are also just the peak of a lot of books that I have read in my life. I have definitely left my Magrat era and am now firmly in my Nanny Og era, and we are hoping that one day we can ascend into true Granny Weatherwax form. So I'm very, very excited for Weird Sisters. Next up, we have my Patreon book club picks for March and April, and let me just say, there has never been a more perfect example of why I pick 2 top books for my book club instead of just 1, because the genres for March and April's picks could not be more different. First up, we have got All of Us Villains by Amanda Foody and C.L. Herman, and this one is a fantasy romance. But it's kind of a fantasy romance if you throw in like urban fantasy elements and also a little bit of the Hunger Games. So in this world, a tournament is held every generation with representatives of the 7 big magical families who each go into this tournament to battle out for control of the magic in this particular part of the world. However, in this world, a new book has just been published, and this book is a tell-all book about one of the families who has won this tournament year after year after year. Normally the Lows would not be worried at all about winning this tournament because they always have by hook or by crook, but now that this tell-all book has come out, all of their nefarious methods for winning have been exposed, and so each of the other champions who are going into this tournament all know all of the secrets, and for the first time the playing field has been levelled. I have absolutely no idea how the romance part of this fantasy romance plays in, but I know that it is a big part of the book, and I also think that there are some queer storylines in here, so I'm looking really forward to this one. It's very different from the kind of things that we've read before in my book club, and it's also the first book in a duology, so that's nice because if I like it, it won't take me very much to finish a series. The next pick for my Patreon book club, however, is straight up horror. It is episode 13 by Craig DeLuey, and again I am super excited for this one because this is one of my favourite tropes in horror. Episode 13 is about a ghost hunting reality crew in a show called Fade to Black. Fade to Black is run by a husband and wife team, and they have become really famous. This is an absolute smash hit series, and episode 13 of Fade to Black takes them to a paranormal archive that nobody has been in since the 70s. It is housed secured in a derelict old mansion that has tons and tons of notorious ghost stories. So the team turn up there to film this episode with all of their high-tech equipment, but as soon as they are shut in, the house starts to play with them. The other amazing thing about this book is that it's kind of epistolary. It is told in interviews and extracts from the episode itself, so kind of like in script format, and emails and documents that have been found in the house that they go to investigate, and I'm so excited. Epistolary novels, like mixed media found fragments, is just something that I buy into again and again. I'm not gonna lie, it's really done really well in my humble opinion. I've only read a couple of books in my life where I've thought you have absolutely nailed that, but I don't care because I enjoy it so much I come back to it every time. And of course we also know that I like haunted house stories, so we've got the ghost hunting crew, a haunted house story, and an epistolary book all in this one. I'm so excited for it, and if it doesn't live up to its potential, I'm gonna be so mad. Next up, I have got this month's buddy read with Amye, and we are going to be picking up a backlist title. And the book that we have picked is Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance. This one, although quite well known in the memoir genre, is definitely one of my particular Leanne niche interest things, which is complicated family memoirs with a side of social commentary. And I say that this one is quite well known because it has of course been turned into a Netflix film of the same name, so hopefully we will get to watch that together after we finish this, and I can let you know at the end of March what my thoughts are on both. That might be an interesting exercise. The author's story starts with his parents who moved from Kentucky to a middle-class suburb in Ohio to try desperately to get out of the poverty trap that they found themselves in. Unfortunately, of course, the way that society works is that when you are caught in that poverty trap, because it is such a miserable experience, there is often a lot of violence, drugs and alcohol abuse, and all of those things were present in JD's childhood. Because although on the surface the Vance family lived the dream, they moved, they got middle class jobs, they fit into middle class society, and one of their grandchildren then graduated from Yale, which is, you know, the upward swinging American dream. They never actually felt like they fit in that environment, and they brought a lot of the societal factors of their poverty through in that experience with them, and so the violence and the alcohol abuse etc. continued. And so from what I understand, Hillbilly Elegy is a look at this family, but also a look at how America sets families like theirs up to fail. As a kid from a complicated family myself, I absolutely adore reading complicated family memoirs, and I'm hoping to do a video very soon recommending a bunch of them to you. Let's look at crossing off some of the categories from my bingo board for this month, starting with my 80% of my 2023 new purchases, because that is by far the biggest stack. First of all, I am going to be picking up How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. Now y'all know how I feel about Grady Hendrix. I think that he usually has some absolutely amazing character work, but that his plots rely on coincidence and weird contrivances and things that I'm like, well, that was lucky, wasn't it? And as I said in my book haul to end all book hauls, I was really done with Grady Hendrix after the Final Girls support group, and then he was bringing out a haunted house book, so I was like, okay, one last try. One last try. But since I mentioned how to sell a haunted house in that haul video, I have had so many opinions from you guys on that book. So many of you have messaged me to be like, Leanne, it really is going to be your last Grady Hendrix book, girl. And so I know that if I don't read this book now in March, I am never going to read it because I am going to be thoroughly put off by all of the opinions about it, and I'm just gonna unhaul it unread. And frankly, where would be the fun in that? Because then you wouldn't get my salty bottoms review in my tops and bottoms. So How to Sell a Haunted House is about a brother and sister who during the pepperoni lost all of their own money, and together they have been left their parents' house, which they now need to completely do up, put on the market and sell really quickly in order to be financially solvent again. The problem is they have not seen this house in a couple of years, and so when they get there they discover that all of the windows are all covered in newspaper and all of the doors are boarded up, and the house itself just feels and smells weird. Now, from all of the marketing on this book, I was led to believe that the pepperoni itself was a big part of the premise of this book, but I'm getting conflicting reports from you guys about that, so maybe it's not as much of an issue as I thought it was, because just to be clear, I don't want to read anything about the pepperoni ever again. So that is potentially not as big of a sticking point to my enjoyment as I thought it was going to be, but again, I will report back. Next, I am also going to be picking up another book that featured in that haul. This is The Cloisters, and the reason that this book made this list in March is simply because I have not stopped thinking about it. Actually, to be fair, I have not stopped thinking about it since I placed the pre-order for it, because it feels like on the surface it will have everything in it to make it a me book. And also, since it has been published, a few reviews have started to roll in from people that I really trust, and they have suggested that it also has some dark academia elements in it, which is just perfect because that is exactly what I'm in the mood for right now. So The Cloisters is about Anne Stillwell. She moves to New York to go and work in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. She is so super excited to be in one of the places that she has wanted to be in for her entire life. She has always aspired to work in this space, but when she gets there she is assigned not to where she would like to be, but instead to the cloisters themselves, which is the Met's Gothic Museum, which includes the outside garden, something that she has zero interest in. However, determined to turn that frown upside down, Anne starts to get involved in the research of her mentor there, who is very obsessed with the idea of divination and tarot cards. Anne doesn't believe in divination or ghosts or predestination or fate or any of those things, but she is perfectly happy to entertain this principle as long as it potentially gets her, you know, in with the right people. However, when working in the archives, Anne then discovers a set of tarot cards from like the 15th century or something, which were thought long forgotten, disappeared. And following this discovery, Anne then has to question whether actually the tarot cards might have a lot to do with her fate. It sounds creepy, it sounds gothic, it has tarot cards in it, the book itself is beautiful, and also not that long. It's only about 300 pages. So everything in this says I should love it, and I shall report back to you and tell you if I do. Okay, so next up I'm going to try and knock another audiobook off of my list, and I'm going to pick up something that has been in my audiobook library for quite a while, but for some reason has recently started to call to me again. This is 6 Stories by Matt Wesolowski. It was published in 2017, and I don't think I bought it that long after its release on audiobook, so I have had it for a while just gathering dust. And I think it's possible that I started thinking about this one because of episode 13 by Craig DeLuey, because while episode 13 is mixed media and told in little fragments and stuff, 6 Stories is told in the format of a podcast, which we know is another thing that I really like. That was an obsession which started in my brain after reading Sadie, as it was for a lot of other people, and again it's just a trope that I am not over. It's a trope that I'm quite happy to continue to revisit. But the way that the synopsis for this one sets it up is just genius. So in 1997, the body of a teenager is found at an outward bound centre in the middle of the woods. From what I'm getting from the synopsis, it sounds like Scarclaw Fell is one of these places that's kind of close to the idea of a boot camp, so kids are sent there to like learn team building skills and find their, I don't know, their moral centre. But the truth about what happened to Tom, that teenager, has never ever come out. Tom was part of a very close-knit group of friends, none of whom claimed to know anything about what happened to him. Fast forward to 2017, where Scott King, a podcast host, has decided to look into this very famous case. Scott's podcast is a runaway success, partly because of his concealed identity. There's tons of speculation online as to who Scott actually is. And because of the runaway success of this podcast, Scott finally manages to secure interviews with 6 of the friends from this close-knit friend group. And over a series of 6 chapters, he conducts 6 interviews, each of which gives you different pieces to try and figure out the mystery. At the end of the synopsis, it says, as every interview unveils a new revelation, you'll be forced to work out for yourself how Tom Jeffries died and who is telling the truth. The other cool thing about this audiobook is that it is a cast audio. Each of the interviews is with a different actor, and that is the reason why I own this on audiobook and not in physical format. And the other cool thing about this is that it's only 225 pages long, which I did not realise because obviously I only have the audiobook copy. But when I looked it up to grab the cover for this video, I discovered that it's a really short, and I also discovered that it's the first in a series. And I have learned my lesson. I have not snooped at the synopsis for the second one in this series, but it looks like this series is based on this podcaster looking at old cases, and each single book in the series is about a different case. And if that's the case, then I am all in. Now we are going to look at a Kindle book. One of the things that I discovered in 2022 was that I need to change my reading before bed. I read a lot of books about a lot of very heavy topics, all the way from true crime to thriller to horror. And what I was doing was that I was reading before bed because I like to read myself to sleep in an ideal world. And often what I was finding that what I was reading before bed was triggering a lot of anxiety thoughts, which would end up in an anxiety spiral, which would feed into my chronic insomnia, which I don't need. The chronic part of the insomnia is bad enough on its own without me just gifting it with things that it can obsess over. And so I have switched almost completely to reading romance before I go to bed. You guys know that typically I don't read a ton of romance. There are a few things that I really like, but I don't often dip my toe into that genre. However, in February I picked up Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings, which is an extremely messy contemporary romance. And when I did that, I then went, oh, this is the kind of romance that I should have been reading. Not the fluffy, happy, gentle kind of romances that I struggle to make my way through because there's really no plot to pull you through. It's just 2 people having feelings, and sometimes the author does that really well, and other times I'm just like, and so upon recommendation from you guys, like all of you guys, because I then asked on Instagram what is your recommendation if I liked Magnolia Parks, I'm going to be picking up Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. Now I do know that this series is controversially either a YA, a new adult, or an adult, depending on what your point of view is on the amount of spicy content in YA books. And I also know that when it comes to Sarah J Maas, absolutely everybody has an opinion on where you should start with her books. Some people are like, read Throne of Glass. Other people are like, no, only A Court of Thorns and Roses, nothing else. And other people are like, really start with Crescent City and work backwards. And I just want complicated angst in something that's going to make me really turn pages and fall asleep with my Kindle on my face. And also, somewhat controversially, I haven't looked up the synopsis for this one. I mean, you cannot exist on the internet without vaguely knowing the name of some of the characters from Sarah J Maas's books. And I know that this is about an assassin in a world that's on the brink of war, but apart from that, I know nothing. And I'm going to keep it that way. Usually that would be criminal for me. I would just be completely against the idea of not giving you a full synopsis. but I'm keeping myself in the dark on this one. I think it's really the best way to go, and so I shall report back to you, and I shall tell you if it passes the test of the anxious brain. Oh wait, is that it? Oh, that's it! Those are all of the books that I am planning to read in March. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... 9 of them. 9 books is not too bad to be going on with. I'm not gonna lie, there are another couple of books that I've got, you know, hanging around in the background that I might want to do for some themed vlogs in March. However, March is also my birthday month. It's my birthday on the 4th of March. It's lovely spouse Harry's birthday on the 23rd of March. And then right in the middle of March is a couple of my little family's birthdays. So March is a very, very busy month, and I don't really think adding more things to my TBR at this present time is a very good idea. So that means that is it, guys. That is our TBR for March, and effectively our first real TBR of the year. I am really nervous about shelving Stack It and Year of Readathons because I know that you guys like them so much, so I would really, really like your feedback. What do you think about my new bingo board? Would you guys like a version of it where you can play along yourself? Are you excited for the little bit of chaos and randomness that my earworm challenge is going to bring us? Are you excited for vlogs? More of which will be landing on your doorstep very soon. Please give me all of the feedback down below and calm my little anxious heart. If you have got this far through the video, then leave me the notepad emoji because this video has been very note-takey. And as always, if you have read any of the books on this list, including How to Sell a Haunted House, then please tell me what you thought of them down below. And if there are any other books that you think that I should read and I should add to my 80% total for this year, then please let me know about them down in the comments below. If you are new here, then please consider hitting subscribe and sticking around, and if you enjoyed this video then please hit that thumbs up because it really does help my channel. And I will speak to you soon, guys. Bye!